Les cuento, hoy vamos a hablar con Aaron Burrows. Él es uno de los trainers de este año. Como saben, en la semana previa a Ekoparty se hace una serie de entrenamientos que son capacitaciones intensivas de entre 2 y 4 días. Este año tenemos trainings de un montón de temas, como hacking de sistemas de control industrial, de bug bounty, de Kubernetes, como hablamos la semana anterior con Sheila. Están los trainings de ingeniería social y OSINT que da Emiliano, que hablamos la semana pasada. Hay un montón de temáticas que este año se van a abordar. Son cursos que están muy buenos, que como les decía duran entre 2 y 4 días con una jornada extendida como para que realmente se lleven un conocimiento profundo y técnico de estos temas, se lleven herramientas y tengan la asistencia del trainer, que es lo valioso en estos casos. Todos los trainers y las trainers de este año y de siempre, de todos los años, son personas referentes en sus áreas, en sus temas, y lo importante de estos trainings, además del contenido, es contar con la asistencia y con la experiencia de ellos, tenerlos uno a uno para que ustedes les puedan hacer todas sus preguntas, que puedan aprender a su lado y bueno, y se lleven herramientas y conocimiento para su trabajo. Así que el tema de hoy, además de hablar con Aaron un poco de él y de su carrera, es hablar de este training que él va a dar, que es de Burp Suite. Si les interesa esta herramienta y aprender un poco más de eso, este training va a ser ideal para ustedes. Aaron vive en Australia, así que vamos a hablar en inglés. Él es un pentester certificado, tiene más de 10 años de experiencia en seguridad informática, asegurando aplicaciones, siendo consultor. Y bueno, este año nos acompaña como trainer dando esta capacitación de Burp Suite que dura 2 días. Va a ser en la semana previa, en la semana de Ekoparty, en los días previos, los días 20 y 21 de septiembre. Si a ustedes les interesa este training o quieren ver el temario, la info está en ecoparty.org. Hay una tab que tiene todos los trainings y ahí van a poder ver el detalle del día 1, día 2, qué es exactamente lo que se va a ver. Igualmente ahora lo vamos a hablar con él. Pero bueno, si les interesa Burp, está buenísimo que puedan tomar este training y ahora un poco escucharlo a él. Además del training vamos a hablar un poco de qué pasa allá en Australia con infosec, que nos cuente un poco cómo es allá el escenario, la comunidad y bueno, y charlar un poco de la vida. Así que lo voy a sumar. De vuelta, gracias a ustedes por estar acá, por escuchar. Si tienen preguntas, porfa, háganlas en el chat o también en el iconito de las preguntas eh, y yo le aviso. Así que bueno, ahora denme un segundo que lo voy a sumar.
All right, looks good. What an
Hello,
intro. Oh, hello. Let me modify that volume. How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thank you. And after that intro, if I ever deliver this live in Argentina, which hopefully in the future might happen, I'll have to learn Spanish by the sounds of it, because yeah, that'd be really cool to get an opportunity to actually deliver a training in a different language. That would be a new one for me.
That would be cool. Yes. You have people here who are so willing to hear you, to learn from you. So
Mm.
it's very exciting for us to have you here. Thank you for the time. What time is it for you over there?
It's just hit 8 in the morning, so quickly got ready before the actual call and scrubbed up a little bit before I turned up on the video, and here we are. So thanks for the help earlier as well. I was getting everything ready and trying to figure out, this is my first Instagram live, so it's doubly exciting for me as well.
I'm gonna I'm gonna tell the guys here that Aaron didn't actually have an Instagram account. He created this account to do this Instagram live with us. So if you want to follow him or keep in touch with him, I recommend you go to Twitter. Can you give your Twitter handle so they can follow you?
Can I type it in? Yeah, it's ABUR583. So nothing too special about it. But yeah, if you guys are looking to follow me on Twitter, I regularly kind of post on there, just sharing security stuff. And there's a lot of security kind of sharing on Twitter, so I recommend it if you're not on it already.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like still is a social net for hackers and infosec people.
I think it's got that great combo of like a real short message, short and punchy, but then you can also kind of, remain anonymous a little bit if you want, that kind of thing. It works for us.
And so since it's very early in the morning for you, what plans do you have for today?
Um, my wife has actually joined and she's in the other room. Today we're actually renovating a house. So we've been renovating the house we bought, and don't hold this against us, but we've been renovating the house we bought 2 years ago. And it's taken a long time,
Talk
because we do
about
it.
procrastination.
Sorry, say that again.
Talk about procrastination.
Ow, ow, my heart. No, no. Yeah, it's just because we only have our weekends, right? So we had to pull it all the way back to nothing and then build it up from scratch. So it took a long time, but we're almost there. So we're getting pretty close to finishing. Pretty exciting.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
thank
must
you.
be hard work.
Yeah, you learn a lot, that's for sure, and you tear up your hands as well. So it, you start to learn that your typing hands are a bit soft.
You do your project management as well.
Yeah, I want I'll give that to my wife. I don't think I'm the project manager. It's more her side, and I just turn up and hit the things with a hammer. Like, I'll be honest about that.
Well, congratulations on the new house and the renovation.
Thank you.
Um, so what can you tell us about Australia and infosec in Australia? How's the community over there? And
Mm. Yeah, what I really like about at least the Australian community, it sounds like the Argentinian community is pretty similar, is it's really warm and welcoming. So there's a lot of different, weekly, monthly get-togethers and that kind of stuff where people just like to share information and learn from each other a lot of the time. And a lot of it comes down to not being too uh, serious about it as well is how I would describe it, in that if someone's just entering the industry and they want an opportunity to share information or share what they've learned, you might have a group in there with 10 years, 15 years, 20 years experience even, but they're not going to call the person out and say, hey, look, actually you're wrong. They just kind of let them talk, let them share, and let them learn how to kind of present in a group. It's quite fun. And then the community comes together, and like capture the flag challenges and that kind of stuff. So I know a couple of my teammates that I'm looking after right now, they're starting their OSCP. They reached out to the community, and within, I think it was about 4 or 5 days, they had a group of 10 people all kind of studying together already, and it's nice to see that people want to work together and they want to really work hard to figure that out. Obviously, because of COVID, the infosec community has gotten a bit more active for sure. There's certainly been a lot more incident response work across Australia at the moment. So that's been a really interesting shift to see how we kind of engage with companies, engage with well, I want to say clients, but a lot of them are also friends, right? And so, when your friend calls you up and you say, hey, and they say, hey, look, there's a data breach or whatever it is, and getting in there and helping with the incident response is been quite a bit of a journey as we've kind of started to like figure out how we're going to handle the uptick in like security threats and whatnot with COVID. So that's been an interesting change, both in kind of the dynamics and how it's affected the community as well, and that people are still pulling together, but yeah, obviously a bit harder, right? And with a lot of it being online now.
yeah, of course. But it's nice to see that you guys are very supportive of each other and like welcoming of the new members of the community. And how do you gather apart from COVID this situation? But are there any conferences or gatherings that you go? Do you travel to another countries near to conferences? Where do people meet over there?
Yeah, good question. For the most part, it's been online, and a lot of them have just kind of smaller groups of what they used to be. Is how what I would describe it. Oh. So a large part of what happened was with I guess, with, for example, we have Sec Talks in Brisbane, and rather than kind of that regular meeting, what they've been doing is, gathering together in like Discord groups and Teams groups and that kind of stuff. So it's been a little bit more relaxed in that sense, in that they're kind of just meeting online and maybe on a Friday afternoon having some beers and having some sharing of information and what they learned and that kind of stuff. So it's been a bit more ad hoc, I want to say, in how they've actually changed and how they're working together. I'd be interested actually, like obviously, with Ekoparty putting this together online. I know this is supposed to be an interview and I'm supposed to answer the questions, but I'm going to throw one back. How have you found like making it online and your group, and what is the experience of trying to take something so large like Ekoparty onto an online platform?
Well, it was hard at the beginning, and of course surprising as for everybody. We would have never imagined not to gather together, because that's essentially Ekoparty. It's the place where everybody knew each other and meet each other again every year and chat and catch up. And some people get interviews, some people get jobs. It's like a good place for the Latin community to gather. But so at the beginning it was very frustrating. But then by now we're like somewhat comfortable with using online events as a tool to gather people together again, and also from different cities and from different countries. They now have to travel to gather and meet each other. And particularly these last couple of years, there's been so many new people to the community. Some minorities also who have been joining infosec and technology in general. And so we are very happy to be the place for them, for new people to join and to get to know information security and learn and make friends and have fun, because that's essentially why Ekoparty was born more than 50 years ago now. And so yes, apart from Ekoparty, we have been doing since March, since the quarantine started here, we've been doing online events, one per month, with free talks, organized in different cities. We started here in Argentina, and then we did one in Chile, in Peru, and now we're doing one in Colombia next month. So we found the opportunity perhaps to gather together with other communities, perhaps smaller or not, from other countries and other cities, and co-host events online. And that has been incredibly satisfactory for both parties, because people are very excited to join and to get new opportunities, new content. And for us, it's what makes us happy, like to gather people together. But yes, we can't wait to be together physically again. We're hoping that by September, by the time of the conference, perhaps we can do some small gatherings. We don't know, information changes every day, and the status of the pandemic changes every day, so we don't really know. But we hope that by September, we can make some small points where people can gather together in small groups to try to have that spirit, Ekoparty spirit. However, it will not be like a massive conference, but yes, we will be together and we will gather, and that's what's important.
Yeah, for sure. I'm fingers crossed, because I think it sounds like you got that warm community, and it really does help to be able to sit in a group and have a chat and figure things out, and that I think online, at least for me, I don't know how you feel about it, but online feels a little bit formal, right? Maybe because that's usually because I do online only when I'm talking to clients or figuring something out with them. So a lot of it still feels like there's a bit of a distance. Whereas if you're sitting in the room with someone, sharing a tea, whatever it has, or a beer, there's definitely breaks those barriers down. So I really got my fingers crossed. September, you can create some groups. That'll be cool. Really cool.
I think so. I think we'll be able. And also for that reason, it's that we started thinking of the format. We don't just want people talking and people on the other side, people sitting watching a talk, because that's the main thing. Of course, we have the main stage and the speakers and everything, But then we want to make it like a real experience apart from watching the talks. And so we are really working hard on creating a concept and an experience around this year's Ekoparty. It's been a challenge, but we're very excited now because we have like great ideas and they're now starting to be real. In March, we were like thinking, but now we're getting closer and things are becoming real. So we're very excited. It's going to be cool.
The heartbeat as well, with the nerves of, oh, is this gonna work?
Yes. Exactly. It was the biggest challenge we could have ever imagined. But I think we're rocking it.
Oh, well, I think it sounds like you guys are doing a great job. So some of the background here, like I help organize. We got 2 conferences in Brisbane, Queensland, that kind of I'm used to, which is CrikeyCon from and B-Sides Brisbane, and both of those helping out. Like, I can't imagine how much you guys have been putting in an effort. So like, kudos to you guys, because yeah, even doing it when it's straightforward, you hire a building, you put people in it, even that's complicated. So well done.
Oh, thank you. I'll pass that on to the team. And so since you mentioned B-Sides, what's your relationship with them? Are they active, and what do you do? Do you post things together? Because we are friends of B-Sides here too. They have chapters in Latam, in different countries, and we are friends with B-Sides too.
Oh, nice. So B-Sides Brisbane, in 2018, we kicked off. So, sorry, 2019, we kicked off B-Sides Brisbane and had the first conference in, I think it was July last year, June, July. And yeah, so we had 3 of us kind of organize and gather for the first time, B-Sides in Brisbane. So it was the first one, so it was pretty exciting. And we were pretty nervous to see how it went with B-Sides Brisbane, because we'd previously all helped with a different conference. And yeah, the B-Sides team were super supportive, giving us kind of the format, content, and that kind of stuff to help us get started. And then yeah, the bulk of it after that was the organization, the calling of people. That, you know, my favorite is, you know, you get someone, they lock in, and then you go, okay, you're definitely locked in. They go, oh no, I had a life priority or whatever it is, and that you have to then scramble and look for the next person and whatever it is, and that kind of stuff. So certainly from the conference organization perspective, it was a lot of you know, fast heartbeat up till the final day. And then, you know, I remember the day before, I couldn't sleep almost. I was like, oh, this is definitely gonna work. And I woke up after 1 or 2 hours sleep, got there, you know, 2 hours early, had a coffee, talked to the other organizers, Brody Carter and Josh Riesenweber. And you know, we'd actually, you know, been setting up all the stuff ourselves the night before. So, you know, setting up all the artwork and that kind of stuff, and just, you know, hoping to build a theme for it, because it was very much about IoT and SCADA was our kind of ideas around there. So it was very much a great opportunity to actually bring people together and start talking about security around, you know, operational technology and the Internet of Things and that kind of stuff. So we had some great talks came in and that kind of stuff. And, you know, the B-Sides name has a great reputation, right? And so people want to take part, and so that kind of helps as well.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations for taking it to Brisbane.
Yeah, thank you.
And how was your journey? How did you get into information security, and how was your career path?
Oh, good question. You're taking me back a bit. So I had just finished my degree at university, and honestly, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was kind of like, you know, there was opportunities and options, but none of them really kind of grabbed me. And then funnily enough, and don't hold this against me, there was an advertisement from Deloitte, one of the big four, and they said, come join our cybersecurity practice. And they started talking about what it was and how it worked and that kind of stuff. And it was good. It sounded awesome. And I joined. And when I joined, there was a bunch of guys there that were really smart and happy to, share information and teach me. So I started working with them and was predominantly at the start I wanted to jump into the technical stuff, but a lot of it was because you're a graduate, right? They give you a checklist and they say, go do this audit, here you go. Here's your audit checklist. And so I was doing the real basic stuff at the start, kind of the systems network, system admin checking. So, do you have too many domain administrators? Do you have strong passwords? All those kind of, ITGC checklists that people joke about being too easy, but I think it's a great starting ground, right? It's a great first place to learn, and a lot of network admins and a lot of auditors and those kind of people that have come into security, they have a great baseline, right? And they can understand and they can talk about it. And the other thing they get is they get what it means for the business, right? And I think that's really important with when you're talking to someone is to have that empathy, understand what it means for them, right? We get some great technical knowledge from pen testing, and like one of the things in bug bounties or pen testing or red teaming or whatever it is you do, you get this really deep technical knowledge that I always talk about it like, go explain it to your grandmother kind of thing, right? Because a lot of the people we talk to and we want to help don't have that same experience that you do. And so that kind of intro was really, really great to kind of get that experience of, okay, I've learned a little bit, and now how do I communicate that to someone else over and over and over again? So I was there for about 5 years when Wade Alcorn, my boss, approached me, and he kind of said, oh, hey, let's have a meeting. Because I'll be honest, I actually cold called him. He had no idea who I was at the time. So I cold called him and said, hey, one of my friends told me to call you. And he said, oh, great, who are you, more or less? And I explained who it was. I said, and we grabbed a coffee. I don't know, is it big in Argentina to go grab a coffee all the time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Or
So
beer, yes.
What's that?
Or beer, but yes, it is.
Or beer, yeah. Can't really have an interview over beer. Well, sometimes you can. Sometimes you can.
Depends. If you're applying for like a Silicon Valley job, I guess you would.
Yeah. Exactly. It's all context. So, had a chat and we were talking pen testing and automating pen testing, and he said, come on board. So I was number 3 at the time, and when we were a little startup 5 years ago, and we grew to about 40 people, and now I'm working for Cyber CX is what it's called, and it's a newly formed company in Australia that's merged some of the top security players in Australia. So it's really exciting to be part of. A lot of weight behind it now. Is going from 40 people to 600 people overnight is a huge shock kind of thing. It's like, okay, how are we going to do this now? So there's a lot of excitement, a lot of stuff happening across the company that is creating waves already. So we'll see where that journey is now, but on the next stage in life, I guess, kind of thing.
Here, there's one person here called Lucas who says you're very welcome to come visit Deloitte Argentina whenever you can.
Oh, nice. Oh, well, that sounds good. I think is there Luciano Martinez in there as well?
Martins, yes, Luciano Martins. Okay. Yes, yeah, we love him. Friend of the house. He's been a speaker and a training for forever. And yes, we love him, and we all here have learned from him a lot. So yes.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Okay. No, I remember having a chat with him, and he was really cool. So I remember that was a long time ago. So glad to hear he's spread so well. That's really cool. What a good
Yeah.
guy.
Mm-hmm. And what's the best or what do you like most and less about your work?
Probably what I like most is the excitement of finding that kind of new challenge point. So actually one of my probably favorite moments was cracking like deserialization on a job once. So we had a strange JSON packet going back and forth between our servers and or our client and the web service, right? And we were kind of looking at it, and it was behaving a little bit funny. And at one point we just said, you know what? I think we can actually find deserialization out of this. And we got the team together, and there was about 2 or 3 of us just pulling this package apart, trying to go, okay, well, there's this component here and this component here. And eventually what we figured out was that it was using the JSON.NET framework in the background, and that they had done the type handling equals all. So that allowed us to build our own little payloads and send it through, get that remote command execution, and get control of the operating system. So that was pretty fun. And that kind of exploration of you think you get a little bit of information, and you think you get a little bit of a hint of, hey, maybe there's something big here, and then you talk to your teammate and they kind of go, show me, and you guys work together, like, look at this, yeah, no way, and then back and forth, and then eventually when you get in, there's like kind of like success moment of achievement and all that kind of stuff, and that technical solution and the technical problem is really fun to solve. That being said, I think one of the difficulties, and this is the one I'm talking to my team about, so maybe there'll be a solution out of the talks. I'll see how many of the talks at Ekoparty I can get to, but one of the things I see a lot is the same finding. Right, so I'll work with a company, and I'll get a finding, and then I'll say, okay, look, this is how you fix like SQL injection or whatever it happens to be, and then you test their next app, and it's got the same thing. And you work with the developers, and it's that resistance to building it in, building security in. It's like it's still, especially kind of pen testing and red teaming, is still very much used as, at least in Australia, I don't know what it's like in Argentina, as a tick box to say, yes, we did pen testing, not in terms of how are we going to integrate this into our business. And that, I think, if I've ever seen, I actually sadly just lost one of my teammates to a blue team. It was great for his new career, but he was suffering that burnout of, he would do a web test or an infrastructure test or even a red team, and he's finding the same things, and the group that he's bringing that information to are thanking him and very, very grateful for that information, but then they take his report and they put it in the drawer. You know what I mean? And it's just like, no, just think about this one thing, like just fix, maybe from now on, parameterize your SQL, all of it. Not just one, all of it, that kind of thing. So that's probably for me the most challenging part of security is making change, right? Making that lasting change, because it's great to be able to find those technical issues and great to be able to explain them. But I guess that's the next bit of like, all right, well, how am I going to actually communicate that, and how am I going to get someone to have everlasting change from it? Looks like we have questions coming through, though.
They're very excited with what you're saying. Chicos, chicas, si alguien es pentester y tiene alguna opinión de lo que dijo Aaron recién, de qué hacer con los findings, o si quieren charlar o que le pregunte algo específico sobre eso, me avisan. It's very interesting what you were saying, because it's essentially so difficult to make people change their behavior. Sometimes it's a matter of time, resources. They don't have the budget to make the change, or they just don't want to because it's too much work. They just have the task to perform the assessment, and that's it. It's hard. I was asking the guys here if perhaps some of the people who are online is a pen tester, because I'm not. So perhaps they had an opinion. The question here is that how does Burp handle automation tasks in order to run custom scripts?
How does Burp handle customization in order to run custom scripts? So I guess it really depends on what you're thinking about in terms of custom scripts. There's obviously two different ways you can handle that. So one is through macros, right? And so there's macros where you can kind of record your activity and you can say, all right, well, here's my request and my response, and I want to grab, this part of the response and put it into my next request. And there's also an extender script as well that kind of allows you to chain them. And that's one of the ones that can, I guess, automate a little bit more easily. The second kind of way that you can automate is obviously you can build your own extender scripts to kind of perform a repeated task. So, I mean, certainly in terms of the App Store and the Burp extensions that you can build yourself, there's a lot of opportunity of flexibility there. So it really comes back to what you're trying to achieve. So when you say automation of tasks, I mean, if you want to say automate looking for a bunch of, like almost like a bug bounty style, like either you're going to go through a subdomain brute force or you're going to go and try and find a file you're not supposed to access. Well, you can use the intruder functionality, right? Because all you're doing is you're modifying the URL over and over again, or modifying part of your post over and over again. So it comes back to, and this is one of the things that I like about Burp, is it's very much a Swiss Army knife. So, if you're trying to achieve looking for files, there's a really, really simple way of doing it, right? And you use the intruder function because it'll just throw through a list. And to be fair, one of the things we do is we actually automate our fuzzing as well. We automate our fuzzing in terms of what I do is I'll take all my parameters and I'll throw everything from, %00 to %ff, right? So you're sending all of the 255 Unicode character, or sorry, ASCII characters that you can throw at it and see how the system will respond, right? So and you can just grow that list, and Intruder has that just kind of built in. But if you want to do something more complicated than that, that's when you have to go to, either the macros or building your own tools. And certainly that side of things is a bit more, like quite a bit more difficult in doing it compared to Intruder. So for example, if you're trying to tackle like the macro perspective, a lot of the time what we use it for is kind of the session management. Like let's say there's some kind of element where you either have to grab a token, maybe like a cross-site request forgery token, or it could be that you get logged out or your token changes every kind of request. Well, in that case, you can go make your request, get yourself logged in, get that token out, grab it, and then make it in your next request, and you kind of automate that back and forth. But I guess that's a long answer for there's a lot of ways to do it. So it really comes back to what you want to try and tackle there. I think this next one, have I tried the new pre-configured browser? I have not. I'd be interested to hear what you think about it, and does it help you in some way, or is it just kind of a new exciting version of the browser that you're interested in using?
Okay, so since we're on the topic, let's talk about the training and the Burp Suite training that you're gonna train here online. Walk us through what it's about and what students gonna learn.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things about Burp Suite is that kind of Swiss Army-ness that we talked about, that Swiss Army tool. And the way we kind of go through it is to talk about, all right, well, here's, the OWASP top 10, and the students get the opportunity to use Burp to actually tackle each of those areas. So for instance, tackling the first step of like SQL injection. How do you explore for SQL injection? How do you identify it? And then how do you exploit it, kind of thing? And they get this opportunity to use Burp to see for the first time very much what is happening between your browser and the server, and what does that communication look like, both that in one direction and the other. And so it's really comes down to and the training is very much about, all right, well, how do you explore those different vulnerabilities, and what are you looking for? So some of the stuff we go through is SQL injection. We then talk about command injection and how to find command injection. To be fair, a lot of the command injection nowadays we see is typically internal. You don't see it so much on like an external website, because obviously if you have an external website with operating system injection, at least without like a server-side request forgery component, it's probably already been compromised, kind of thing, at that point. So there's that component of the understanding how to find it, but then where you might find it nowadays is more likely in, for example, we found it in a home router. So there was a home router that you could compromise through this kind of technique. We will then start covering kind of how session management and access control works, right? And this is where the pen tester really comes into fore, because SQL injection and other forms of injection you can find with like an automated scan. That being said, when it comes to like broken access control and session management, how that works, broken authentication and session management, well, you as a human can understand context. And what some of the stuff we'll be walking through is like, well, how do you pick up context in the application? Or in another way, how do you figure out how the developer was thinking when they made it? So for example, when you've got like an administrative function, right? Maybe they hide it by changing, administrator equals false to administrator equals true, or something along those lines. And it's about picking up, all right, well, for example, one of the jobs I was on recently, they had a function, and in the URL they had a parameter called like can view, and we were thinking about it, and because we had that privilege to like view, we thought, well, what would be the other terms they might use to kind of use some of the other functionality, such as modifying? So we tried, can underscore modify, or can underscore delete, or all these different things, and stuff that like an automated system won't be able to pick up on. And it turned out that can underscore edit was the actual term that they were using to hide their edit function. And so we got in and could modify some of the stuff in the system when you didn't have the permissions to do so. And so it's that kind of stuff, and starting to think about, okay, well, what context do I have, and can I look into it in a way that maybe a machine wouldn't think, right? Because a lot of the stuff we see is, the kind of the automated Nessus pen testing, or like a vulnerability assessment. But Nessus is not going to tell you that, you can change can view to can edit, and you can get in and be an administrator, that kind of stuff. So then we're going to move into kind of like sensitive information exposure. So what is it? How do you identify it? Where can it be? One of my favorites being, looking through the JavaScript code to make sure that there's no kind of hidden functionality, or my favorite, commented out functionality that a developer used in testing and has now like pushed out to production. And it wasn't in there because it was commented out, but then you find out maybe it's their discounting function, and you can now discount your purchases by like 10%. And then you do it 10 times, and now you've discounted by 100%. It'd be great to buy free stuff all day, right? So that's kind of that without talking about the entire training end to end, that's kind of the stuff that they'll be exploring. So there's 15 different tutorials that we have, tutorial labs, to walk through from you know, SQL injection all the way down to, you know, finding vulnerable components in an application. And then there's also kind of 5 challenge tasks, because we do find I've delivered this about, on average, about I'd say 5 times every year for the last 5 years. So we do find that some people are, you know, just a lot more clued into how to actually tackle the tutorials, and, you know, they get it instantly. That being said, sometimes I'm a little suspicious. We do have little hints that you can use, and some people solve them very quickly. And I try to say, don't use the hints. Try and go through it yourself before you hit the hit button. But I think some people are just going hint, 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 solve. But, you know, everyone can choose how they learn, right? So so from the challenge perspective, the challenge there is where you have no hints, and usually it's part of the concepts that you've learned, but taken to the next level. So depending on the skill of the class, maybe we'll get through all of the 5 challenges. You know, fingers crossed. So far we've got to the second, so that's a bit of a challenge, like a bit of a challenge for the group to come along, is like, see if we can get all the way to challenge 5 in time, because that would be really cool. That would be the first time I've ever had that.
Wow.
Yeah, but I think that's the bulk of the information about the training. Was there anything kind of anything else that people would want to know about? I see there's another question come through. Is Burp suitable to be set up in an IT environment? I mean, for sure. I would say that, I mean, just like any tool, you have to kind of do your risk rating. Obviously, don't just download a tool, put it in your environment, and say, hey boss, look what I did. They may not appreciate that, wouldn't recommend it. But you could certainly go from a perspective of, maybe you have an internal environment where you can run either something in isolation or something that you know that you control, and you could, you know, tailor maybe your I guess you're talking about like Splunk logging or other monitoring that you might have, or whatever SIEM you might be using. From that perspective, you could, you know, attack an internal website or even an external website and see what your monitoring systems pick up and what the logs actually produce. Because I think, you know, it really comes back to what you're trying to achieve, right? Because if you're trying to just, you know, security monitor bits and pieces, well, I think I think you probably want to focus on your key assets before you're figuring out what, you know, Burp logging produces.
There's another one. What are your favorite Burp extensions?
Yeah, I got a few actually. So NCC developed one called Freddy, and, you know, after that deserialization exploration, I started thinking in the team, there's got to be an easier way. So we started building one, and then NCC got there first and finished it. So they built a really good deserialization tool that kind of helps automate some of the deserialization checking. There are Hackverter, I think, is one of the really handy ones, because you get a lot of different payloads and a lot of different kind of encoding and encryption and all this kind of stuff. And doing it by hand in Linux or Ubuntu, or, you know, most people are using Debian when they start because they jump into Kali Linux, is honestly a bit of a headache. Sometimes, you know, there's like let's say you're transforming something into a hash, like an MD5 hash. So when you're doing that, if you're trying to do it into Linux, it's a real pain in the butt, because you got to make sure that you don't put like new lines in, otherwise it'll change the hash and yada, yada, yada. Whereas if you do it in Hackverter, it's very straightforward. So you say, and they're getting stronger and stronger. Now they have their own Python hooks, I think they have, where you can write your own Python to do your own custom kind of modification. Because sometimes in a pen test, you might see custom modification of a payload. So Yeah, Hackverter is great for that. What else do we use? I use Logger++ as well. There's another one called Flow. Both of those are really useful in terms of knowing what your automation is doing. So, for example, we'll be going through Burp Suite Pro, and one of the things we like to do towards the end of the class is actually show what the Burp Suite scanner can pick up. And the reason is it does two things. You see how things get automated and how things can be found in an automated way, but also you see the limitations of it and the limitations of a scan, which I think is really important to understand, right? We don't want to be people that, point scanners and say, yep, we're done. So we think about and we explore, all right, well, what are the things that can be found by a scanner, but what are the things that cannot? And certainly Logger++ will give you an additional benefit in that one of the things we find a lot of the time especially in a web test is that the scanner, when it is doing things, it might have actually found something, but you have to remember the way a scanner works is that it does one thing and then looks for a result, right? It's a string matching for the most part. It'll either look for, either a wait time or a result that it can measure. What it won't look for is like an error 500. It won't look for a error 400, and it won't understand why those errors are happening. They'll just happen. And certainly quite a few bugs we found by just going through our data and doing a little bit of data analysis and seeing some of the trends. Yes, I do have a Twitter account. ABUR583 is my Twitter, so feel free to follow along and I'll follow you back. Will I explain how to detect SSRF in the training? Detecting SSRF is actually quite a complicated question. Quite a complicated question. The next question was quite humorous. In that, what you're talking about is, how did multiple stages of things communicate, and can you detect that? Well, I mean, the thing for me when you're looking for SSRF is that you're looking for some kind of indicator that the back end is using the information that you've provided. So certainly this course will touch to an intro of it, but I don't have any SSRF challenges or SSRF built-in components because of the nature of the challenges, right? You typically would use like a collaborator function in finding SSRF, at least from a scanning perspective, or at least an automated searching perspective. Otherwise, you do each of it manually. The way of going about that is probably, beyond the scope of 2 days. And I'll be honest, like during my career, I found maybe a handful of SSRF, right? It's not something that, I've found regularly. So maybe we actually just talk about it in the class and we can figure out, what has everyone else experienced in terms of SSRF, because I can share some of my own experiences, but certainly not a single one has been the same. So it's one of those ones where it'd be hard to say here's how you do SSRF, because that's not fair. Each one is different as far as I've experienced anyways. I'm happy to be wrong on that though.
That's earlier when I was making the introduction, I was mentioning actually how the value of these trainings, apart from the content and the technical skills that you learn, is being there with the trainer and being able to have you there with your whole attention to them and ask you every question that they have for their jobs, for the day-to-day tasks. And that's one of the things that I think is more valuable about these trainings, like having access to people with a wide experience on the topic who can answer practical questions and solve technical doubts. Apart from the tutorial, the actual experience and the feel that you have on this is very valuable.
Oh, yeah, great. No, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be good. And we got some hungry learners as well by the looks of it. So that's, that's my favorite group. So
Yes, there are. We hope you all sign up for this training. Remember, it's in the week before of Ekoparty on 21st of September, 2 days. Just sign up if you're interested in everything that Aaron is talking about and you want to learn more about Burp Suite in this workshop. Just take the chance. Remember, some of these trainings sometimes are available in other conferences or other spaces at different and higher rates. So here for us in LATAM, to have this content here at an adapted price for LATAM is very valuable for you guys. So I hope you can all make it and take advantage of this great training. What would you say are the main takeaways that students will get from the training after the classes?
Yeah, for sure. It'll be, the key ones are, how do you map a web application? So how do you find all the components of it? The second would be, how do you then find the vulnerabilities in those components? And then finally, it'll be, how do you then exploit that to demonstrate the actual impact? And that'll be the key with using, Burp Suite as our essential the messenger for how we actually do those three components. And that's the key elements that we'll be working on through the training.
Mm-hmm. And what has been, did you have any funny stories that happened during the training or something, I don't know, something out of the ordinary?
During a training? Probably the first one would be how would be my clearest memory during a training was, we produced our labs and we tested them quite thoroughly, we thought anyways. And the first challenge someone solved in a way that it should not have been solved. It shouldn't have worked. And we were trying to figure it out for the longest time, like what had they done that actually allowed it to work. And it ended up being kind of a simple, little element of MySQL, a little bit of a red herring in some of the documentation that says if you do something in a specific way, then you'll get the same result. That's the result that the first tutorial is trying to achieve. And so, they showed me, oh, this is how you solve it, and I was like, no, it's not. Show me. What? And yeah, they had the result we expected. And it just happened to be that they had done like a wild card we hadn't accounted for, essentially. And so it just, one of the challenges is to pull all the data from the database. And they had just created the right sequence of wildcards to just pull everything out, even though they were supposed to be pulling it out with SQL injection. So that was a bit of a fun one. And I guess yeah, that's probably the main kind of humorous element. A lot of the fun stuff has been about the discussion most of the time. Like a lot of people will come with really considered questions. Trying to think, I can't think of one at the moment. It's a bit early for me, sorry. But but certainly a lot of the stuff we've discussed on the floor, and this is one of the things that I'll do at the start, is I'll actually write up on the board all the kind of questions people have about web testing or kind of testing in general. And we'll do our best to actually just go through them during the training and cross them off. And a lot of that considered discussion comes from, well, how, like, for example, how is this different from testing APIs? Or how is this different from testing, internal infrastructure, that kind of stuff. A lot of the like grander questions that we get is like, oh, well, can I go red team now? And the short answer is no. You're not going to be a red teamer by the end of this training. And certainly the other one that I get a lot is like, oh, is there anything you can practice on? Yes, you can practice on anything that you download. Please do not practice on, one of my favorites was one of the one of the students went home, took because we give the license back to them, the Burp Suite Pro license. They took it home and, you know, tested a bunch of their company's websites and like caused a bit of a headache. And so since then I've been saying, please, whatever you do, do it legally, and ask permission before you do it. So that, I mean, that's kind of some of the funny stuff that happens at the end. Like, you know, people are just getting their first experience. They get really excited. They just want to explore and learn some more. But yeah, definitely important to stay within the law.
Please, people. There was another question that I think we missed is, please say something to OWASP Zap users, how to convert them on Burpees, and what are the main differences?
Between Zap and Burp, look, I'll be pretty honest about OWASP Zap. I haven't used it much, and the times I have used it, the difference is honestly comes into the UI and the development and the repeatability of tasks. So at least for me, from what I've experienced. So from an OWASP Zap perspective, you know, it does do, you know, the almost like the same as the Burp repeater function. You can do a request and a response, but like managing your projects, managing how like where you stopped the last point, managing how you can get, I guess, more insights from the community, especially in like the Burp extender. It's just a lot more mature from a Burp experience. It's a lot more I guess I would call it kind of like seamless or streamlined, in that when I'm working with the history, what I can do is I send something off to the repeater and it comes into, you know, two easy to modify panels. I can see everything that I have to modify, and I can, you know, replay that and then push my cert through, and it's a little bit for me, yeah, most of it comes down to that kind of familiarity and the seamlessness to it. So I couldn't say there's one tool better than the other. Certainly in my mind, like OWASP Zap, it's been around for a long time. It has its you know, benefits. Would I know exactly what would split them apart? Not really, but certainly my experiences with Burp has come back to that maturity, is that there's been a lot of effort put in from the Burp Suite guys to make it so that it's easy to use and make it so that you can, you know, essentially kick off today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We don't want to take too much of your time. I know it's early and you have your full day ahead, so we want you to be able to seize your day. And if you have any closing words or a message that you want to leave the people here, maybe tell them why they should do this training.
Yeah, for sure. Look, for me, the training is all about, if you're taking your first steps into web testing, or even you want to explore it a bit deeper, this is the class for you. This is where hopefully we're going to get a lot of people that have, you know, the similar ideas, and they're there to want to learn. And honestly, the thing that really works for me is that participation. If you want to participate, if you want to start exploring how you actually test web applications, if you want to understand we'll talk about how to secure them as well, and you want to understand how to use the Swiss Army knife that Burp Suite is, come along. It'd be great to have you.
That's awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. This has been very fun. Thank you. I hope you enjoy your day, that you have your entire day ahead. And now we're almost going to bed.
Sleep well then. Thank you very much for the interview, and hope you have a great rest of your night.
You too. Thank you so much. People, Aaron will be expecting you in his training September 20 and 21st.
Brilliant.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you.
See you, everyone.